Britain. On digital TV, online and on your mobile. This is BBC Asian Network.
Indeed, it is the BBC Asian Network, and it is now 10 a.m. Welcome to the phone-in show. The name's Nihal. Thank you very much indeed to Mr. Tommy Sandhu and the breakfast team. Now, do you think that Britain has a responsibility to take more migrants from Africa? Many of you will have seen the news over the weekend, where reportedly 700 migrants are feared to have drowned after their boat capsized off the coast of Italy. Many of these migrants are risking their lives paying traffickers to get them into European countries. But if Britain has been involved in military action in these countries where the migrants come from, should it be doing more to help them when they get over here? So, that's the question I have for you this morning. Does Britain have a responsibility to take more migrants from Africa? Or can you say it's not our problem? They need to sort it out themselves. 81869 is the text number, or you can email me, nihal@bbc.co.uk. You can do that now, and we'll start talking after the news with Ushma Mystery.
BBC Asian Network News.
Thanks, Nihal. European Union ministers are meeting today to discuss the worsening migrant crisis in the...
Got something to say? Then say it. Nihal on BBC Asian Network.
Thank you, Ushma. 4 minutes past 10. Do you think Britain has a responsibility to take more migrants from Africa? 700 are feared dead off the coast of Libya. The boat they were in was on its way to Italy when it capsized. So far, only 24 bodies have been found. Now, the route from North Africa to Italy and Spain is said to be one of the most dangerous. More than 31,000 migrants have already arrived from North Africa this year, and 900 of those died trying to make the crossing in the 4 months from January to April. I was reading the BBC News copy, and they described the Mediterranean as fast becoming a graveyard of immigrants. Many of those who died this weekend are from Libya, and charities say they've been trying to escape the political crisis in the country since Colonel Gaddafi was deposed. Now, Britain was a part of that military action 5 years ago. So, has Britain dropped the bombs and then abandoned Libya? Should Britain be doing more to help these migrants? Do we share responsibility for their welfare? After last week's Asian Network poll, which suggested 50% of Asian voters want the next government to be tougher on immigration, should we actually be more sympathetic to the plight of migrants coming over from Africa? Or, with EU immigration, we already have enough people coming in. And these people are, however bad their situation is, economic migrants. And we just don't have the space for them. What do you think? Does Britain have a responsibility to take more migrants from Africa? Yes or no? Get in contact with me. Tell me how you feel about this. 81869 on the text. Email nihal@bbc.co.uk or give us a call, and here's the number.
Call Nihal now on 08459 440.
10 past 10. Do you think Britain has a responsibility to take more migrants from Africa? Or do you think it's the job of African people to sort out their problems and for them not to be dumped on our doorstep? That we are a country now that is full because of EU immigration to this country. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people have arrived on our shores legally. We do not have the space to take in anyone else. And it is the job of the politicians in those countries to build a society that means that people feel safe there. Is that your attitude? Or do you think, well, look, if you're going to go around the world creating this havoc, after all, British warplanes helped to topple Gaddafi. I wonder how many Libyans argue that their country is now better, even though, of course, he was a tyrannical despot. At least there was some semblance of stability. But it's not just from Libya these people are coming from large swathes of sub-Saharan Africa. Something like in the 5 North African countries, youth unemployment is at about 25%. So 1 in 4 of young people under the age of 25 in those countries are unemployed. Kuldeep called in from Leicester. 08459 440 445 is the phone number if you want to tell us what you think. Kuldeep, good morning.
Hi, morning, Nihal. You're right.
I'm good, mate. Do we have a responsibility to take more migrants from Africa, Kuldeep?
No, I don't think so. Well, if you look at Leicester or England, it's just full. It's full, particularly of Africans now. It's just too many. You know, if you look at Leicester, you have we took in so much the Somalian community, and even from like other countries like Holland, Denmark, Germany, you have like the Africans, the Somalians, and others that come from those countries when they get nationality, and they come and live in England. So England is like the burden. Everyone's heading over to England, and you look at areas, they're just full. You know, you won't see any of the face, and you know, it creates problems for everyone.
What kind of problems?
Well, you know, like, you know, everyone, because they don't work. The Somalians don't work, you know what I mean? They have so many children, and you see the women with about 6, 7 kids, you think, bloody hell, I'm working, and these people are on benefits. They're supposed to get tax credits, hundreds of pounds of tax credits, other, you know, benefits that you get these days. You know,
how do you know the husband isn't going out to work? The dad isn't. How do you know that?
Look, mate, because look, you know, I know you're a liberal. I used to live in the area.
I'm just questioning because I find it difficult to accept. You can talk about one race of people.
Yeah, I used to see which Africans work. The the black Zimbabwe Christians used to work. They were educated. The Somalians, they were all living on benefits. They just haven't got work culture. You know, like that. You look at these Polish, look at the young people, how hard they work. You know, the females as well. I've seen females washing cars yesterday, you know what I mean? You won't get Somalian, you know, young people doing that, would you?
Well, you don't know all Somalians, so you can't say that they're all like this. You can say that the ones that you've come across are, but it's very difficult in the same way that you, I'm sure, would find it racist if someone said all Asians are this or all Asians are that.
I think, look at France. Look how you know, you get pockets of Algerians and all these other nationalities. Look how the problems is causing in Paris and all these gangs and all these, you know. And the same is going to happen to, you know, Britain, where you'll have the whites moving out of the cities, moving into the countryside, and you'll have just, you know, ghetto areas. It's just, you have to look at the future. We can't take the whole of, can we take the whole of Africa?
Kuldeep, stay with us. Amrat Singh from the Kripa Food Bank in the Midlands joins us. Amrat, good morning.
Good morning, Nihal.
What do you make of Kuldeep's points that we can't take any more of them in and they're coming over here and they're taking benefits and they're not doing anything?
One of the reasons that we get this news day in, day out, every day, we get immigrants coming in the country, you know, finding a better place, a better life. But what we've got to bear in mind is some of these poorest men, women and children in the world, you never know what or understand the plight they're going through. Nobody asked to be born into poverty, famine or endless war. So the reason why it's happening is to escape a better life. One will never know the pain of migrants who move by war, famine, until someone you love has been through it.
So are you saying that someone like Kuldeep should be more sympathetic?
Yes.
All right, Kuldeep, you should have more sympathy.
How many more? You know, Britain is such a little country. We can't take the whole of Africa, you know. How many states are in Africa? Are we going to take everyone? Africa's a lot of poverty there, but are we going to take all of them? Is that what you want?
Okay, Amrat.
Can I correct that? We're not taking the whole Africa. We're just looking some of these families who are really, really in the desperation, who have no means, who can't even get a normal meal. For example, we got some of the families that we've been helping down in Britain, some of these these migrant centres we've been facing them day in, day out. Some of them have been very good, became a very with the Britain system that they got involved with, although they were being classified as illegal.
Okay, how much do you think we should take? How many every year we should take Africans?
I know a lot of people are debating this every day and saying how much we should take. We have to look into numbers that we take, but this incident happened is because it's a disaster. They haven't got choice. So we're not saying we're going to give a specific
why
number.
don't we go into those countries, help them make their infrastructure and everything, and we won't have this problem where they're making all these perilous journeys, across the waters, and, they're dying and everything. We should actually go in and sort out the countries instead of just,
All right, okay. Amrat and Kuldip, stay there for a second. I'm going to bring Jay in Ilford. Jay, good morning. Jay? No, let's go to Anita Kapoor, ex-Tory councillor and member of the Tory party. Anita Kapoor, good morning.
Good morning, Nihal.
What about Amrat's argument that we should be more sympathetic to these people?
What do you do? It's a very, very difficult question. On one side, you're a human being, and to see another human being suffering is very, very difficult. On the other side, we are in debt as a country. Our NHS needs money. We have no aging population. We have money. One thing I did think about is that when we target our foreign aid, why not target our foreign aid to countries who are doing something to resolve this problem within their countries? And I think that is the way forward, is to help governments, to help people empowering these companies in these countries to empower their own people. But, and I am guilty of this, when I see somebody begging on the street, I do sometimes put my hand in my pocket. And I'll tell you one little story. As I was walking to work one day, and this young lad was crying, and I asked him, as a human being, is everything all right? He said, well, I found a place to work, but I've got no food. A lump appeared, and a tear dropped, and I thought, oh, God, this could be my kid. I took him to Tesco's and said, well, this is what I can afford. Just take what you need. He bought milk, butter, bread, and it really broke my heart. It's a very difficult, very, very difficult question. There is no answer when you see people suffering in front of your eyes.
But these aren't people we see suffering in front of our eyes. These are people who are taking perilous journeys. And as has been argued, Anita, if we are going to indulge in regime change and not then be there to help the people to keep their country together, then we have a duty and a responsibility to take those people in, don't we?
Not to take those people in, but we do have a duty to make sure that we support governments who are actually doing something for the people or their residents. I think that is the way forward. How many can we take in? What about people who have put money through their taxes, NHS, pensions, etc., and we can't even afford to meet all their needs? As I said, it's a very, very difficult, and it's trying to balance the two.
Amrat,
Yes.
So far, not much sympathy for this idea of allowing migrants to come to the UK from Africa. Now, you're someone who yourself travelled from another country to come here, didn't you, Amrat?
Yes.
What is it like meeting these individuals who've been through this perilous journey? What is it like when you talk to them? What do they say to you?
It's completely a different ball game for me when I came 15 years ago. Came to get a proper education here, and was given a choice to if I need further and build up my career, which I have been contributing from the day one when came and studied, worked here. And to all my life, and I've seen others as well who are trying to achieve the same goals in life, but it's quite difficult for every individual out there in the world to talk for themselves, because I understand at the same time British taxpayers will which contributing nearly around 2.35 million a year, especially with the Calais, we're having immigrants coming in every month, which we did help some of these, if you can recall back, some of these Afghan Sikhs who have been deported.
Yes.
And some of them have been kept and became an asylum seeker. Right. These people who we have kept them and basically has come back and has contributed something back to the economy and in the political. And some of the people that we as organizations, some of the people that we've been helping as a family, we've seen a lot of progress, good families, good morals, showing the diversity and the ethnic and accepting them as a society.
Okay, Amrath, we're going to leave it there, but Amrath Singh, thank you. Rab is on the line. After that, we've got Annie in Lancaster. Rab, good morning.
Hello there, good morning, Nihal.
Does Britain have a responsibility?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have a responsibility to accommodate anybody at this present moment in time.
Why?
Because we're in dire straits ourselves in this country. There's so many people using services like the what's called food banks. People are out of work. People are, especially since the EU opened all the borders. The amount of EU migrants that we've had over the past probably 10 years has been absolutely stupid. These MPs don't really know anything about real life because in the sort of areas they live in, they don't see what's going on. They need to come and visit my area and see how bad it is in the situation. They, like one of your other callers said, a lot of them come over here and they don't work. There is certain communities that do come over and do work. I mean, I do agree. I don't agree with the one gentleman who said that all the Somalians, was it a gentleman or a woman, I can't remember, said that the Somalians come here and they don't. In fact, it's the complete opposite over here where I live, over in Birmingham. The Somalians have escalated and opening their own businesses. They've got their own mosques. They've got their own community centres, and they don't want. They're not interested in any kind of handouts and all that. There is two types of Somalians, I've got to say. There is the one type that think that they're the ones who are following proper, the Islam. Islam tells you that you have to go and earn your own living, and part of Islam is is that you have to be working to actually support your family. And then there's the other type that there is a type that sort of do basically nothing and just walk around as if they're what's it called, the West Indians, as I call them, because they walk around with the same type of how they dress and how they talk and how they act and everything. But I think
again, this is very broad stereotyping, isn't it? It's very negative to be stereotyping people.
No, it's not, Nihal, because the thing is, right, I said where I live. I can't speak for everybody around the whole of the world, but I can talk about where I live in the areas that I live. So wait a minute,
but Rab, countries, countries like ours who are relatively wealthy, and if we are going to do things like decide that we're going to change or help change a regime in another country like we did with Colonel Gaddafi, if then there is chaos after it, like the chaos that happened in Iraq, do we not have a responsibility to help those Libyan people who want to come here because their country now is a basket case?
No, because it could have been worse in the past. If we don't know what would have happened if we hadn't intervened, it could have been even worse. So that's not an excuse. The thing is the situation at the moment in the UK is actually very, very shameful in the sense that we call ourselves a wealthy country, but yet there's people that are going to food banks. There's people that are going and actually stealing because they can't afford. With the government has got it all wrong. If I was poor in my household, I wouldn't be worried about my neighbour or worried about anybody else. I'd be first worried about my family.
All right.
Then if I had excess, I would be giving it to my neighbour.
Okay, Rab, wait there a second. Annie in Lancaster is on the line. Annie, good morning.
Morning, Nihal.
Rab is saying, look, we're in dire straits here. We haven't got enough money to feed our own people with food banks, etc. Why are we even thinking about taking anyone else in?
Well, we have got enough money for all our people to be eating properly. That's really due to government policy over the last 5 years. Why the exponential sort of growth in food banks has been going on. So that's, but I just think as a wealthy Western country, and all the wealthy Western countries, which we are a wealthy country, we're the 6th wealthiest one in the world, we have an obligation to take a certain amount of refugees and asylum seekers. And at the beginning of this programme, you said that they were economic migrants. And I was listening to Radio 4, actually, yesterday, I think it was, and there was somebody from the UN saying that actually most of them aren't economic migrants. A lot of them are fleeing from war, persecution, even torture. Or, so they're not all economic migrants, and they're desperate. I mean, who would get into a sort of a death a death ship and take that journey unless you were absolutely desperate. And as a country, we do have a history of taking refugees. We took a lot of Jewish children in before the Second World War, and my own father was involved with helping settle refugees from Hungary in 1956. He was in the local Rotary Club, and they took it on to help Hungarian people to get settled and help them find jobs and accommodation and things. So we have a history of helping refugees, but these days I think we've become a much more selfish, individualistic society, and it's just everybody for themselves.
Okay, Annie, one second. Rab, we've become more selfish.
If that's the case, if people are, we should open our doors to people that are fleeing from wars, then why don't we open the doors to let people that are dying over in Syria and dying over in Palestine, they should be the first people to come here, because it's been going over there for years. There's all sorts of Muslims have been dying for years. Nobody's opened the borders for them.
Well, I agree with you, actually, Rab. I think
Libyans are predominantly Muslims.
Germany have taken in about 10,000 Syrian refugees since the beginning of the war in Syria. We've taken on about 200. I mean, it's pathetic. It really is. We're just not living up to our obligations anymore.
Right, Rab, we're not living up to our obligations, and
no,
also
I don't think we have an obligation at all. The reason we don't have an obligation is if our country was in a good situation like it used to be about 20 years ago, then yes, look, our faith, Islam, teaches us to be charitable, right? It also tells us that when you have a certain amount saved, then after that you give 2.5%. It doesn't say to you, you actually starve yourself first and then give 2.5%. It doesn't matter whether you're starved and give 2.5%. It even tells us in our Quran that you have to have a certain amount of savings before you can give 2.5%. Otherwise, it's not an obligation on you.
But you see, the reason why there's so many food banks in this country is not because this country is a poor country. It's to do with politics. It's to do with the fact, the changes in all sorts of things, to do with the welfare state, to do with the fact that people don't get their benefits on time or get cut off and don't get them at all, or a lot of people are actually working because the minimum wage is so low in this country. That's why people are using food banks. It's all to do with political decisions.
Regardless of whether it's down to politics or whichever way you want to paint it, it still boils down to the fact that people are in a situation which they would rather not be in, which is that they are poor because they can't afford to eat or eat. They can't afford to go and have a decent lifestyle. They have to go to places like food bank. I mean, I would die of shame if I had to go to a food bank. So I can imagine how those poor people must be feeling. I mean, there is a certain pocket full of people that, yes, they do go to food banks and actually claim poverty when they're not really that bad off, because I've seen it with my own eyes, and I've actually grasped on them people myself, because we run a food bank, I
think we're going a little bit off topic though, Rab, just because I don't want to talk necessarily about food banks here in the UK. I do want to talk about the responsibility we do or we don't have to take people in from the country, because of course Annie's arguing that the food banks situation could be sorted out very easily in this country if the politicians wanted to. That's Annie's idea. And that, just because there are food banks here, does that mean we shouldn't be helping people out? After all, we have food banks here, and yet overseas development spending is ring-fenced. It's one of the few things that's protected.
Yes, like I said, they've got it all wrong. The government's got it all wrong, Nihal.
So we shouldn't be giving any money to other countries either.
Their pockets are full. They think everybody else's pockets are full.
I think, our government has said that, that when this Italian organisation that was helping to rescue the people from the Mediterranean was stopped, and now it's this EU, much less of a service, and now, and they were saying, well, that'll act as a deterrent. I mean, that is inhumane to say that it's okay, just let a few people drown because it'll act as a deterrent. In actual fact, it hasn't anyway, because more people than ever are coming. But it amazes me that people can be so utterly inhumane.
It's not about inhumane. My family comes first. I don't care about anybody else's family.
Well, that's very selfish.
No, it's not, because my family, who's going to look after my family? Are you going to look
looking after your family, obviously.
No, are you looking after my family?
But you see, Rab, you are in a situation whereby you can look after your family, because there's not war going on around you. People are not coming to kill you in the middle of the night. The government is not looking to drop bombs on whatever part of Birmingham you live in. Therefore, you can do it. These people can't do any of that. So they want to have a better life for their families.
But there's wars going on all around the world, Nihal, at the moment, which people don't mention, and yet nobody cares about those, because majority of those people that are dying are actually Muslims, you see. But because they only...
Sorry, you keep saying this... Wait a minute, you keep saying this Muslim issue, but Libya, North Africa is predominantly Muslim. So a large amount of these people who are dying are Muslims. So it doesn't make any sense what you're saying. Doesn't make any sense.
The people that are fleeing they're all trying to help all the what's Syrians, because they're saying that they're killing all the Christians and that's why they're helping Syrians. If it was just look what's been happening in Palestine, all Muslims have been killed, right? And nobody has said we should open the doors to the Palestinians, even though they're all been massacred.
Well, there are already Palestinian refugees all over that region. There are hundreds of thousands of them in that region, in Jordan and in Lebanon. So there already are. What we're talking about is something very new that has happened only in the last, 5 years or so. And they are a lot of Muslims who are drowning in the Mediterranean, Rab. To say that somehow these are not Muslims that are drowning is ridiculous, or that the world doesn't care because they're Libyans is ridiculous.
They'll say that they're fleeing from persecution because they're Christian. That's what they'll say.
Well, they're fleeing not just from that, Rab, they're fleeing from the fact that there is whole-scale carnage going on, regardless of whether they're Muslim or Christian. But, Rab, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. It's coming up to 34 minutes past 10. 08459 440 445 is the phone number. Text 81869. It's fascinating, isn't it, that so far everybody who's called in believes that we don't have a responsibility. What do you think? Some people on my Twitter timeline have said they find it very, very odd that, say, Ugandan Asians. Can you imagine if the British public had that attitude to you? And some people in the British public did have that attitude towards Ugandan Asians that came here. So now, knowing that there was some disquiet when Ugandan Asians came here, can you, as a Ugandan Asian, for instance, turn around and say Britain doesn't have a responsibility? You tell me. 08459 440 445 is the phone number. We've got Jay in Ilford, we've got Raj in Pontefract, we've got Vijay in Birmingham, we've got Senna who got in contact with us about this. But I'd like to know your opinion. Does Britain have a responsibility to take in migrants from Africa? Do you think they're fleeing persecution and war? Or do you believe they're coming here as economic migrants? Do we have a responsibility as human beings? Just think for a second what it must be like. There's an article in the Telegraph that I was reading, and it described what it was like to be in a windowless metal box with your children, perhaps your elderly relatives, the prey of people traffickers, gangsters, people who will exploit you, who care little for your well-being. What would drive you to do that, to make that perilous journey with your children? But do we have a responsibility to take them, or do we have more of a responsibility to do something to help those countries they come from have a modicum of stability so that they can stay there and not have to make these journeys in the first place? It is coming up to 20 to 11. You're listening to Nihal live on the BBC Asian Network, and we're talking about this really heartbreaking issue that took place over the weekend and has been taking place almost daily this year, which is thousands of migrants leaving Africa to cross the Mediterranean to try and get a better life in Europe. And many of them have died making the perilous crossing. That's men, women and children. But the question is, do we have a responsibility in the UK to take migrants that are coming from Africa? Should we be doing more? Jay in Ilford called in. Jay, good morning.
Morning now.
Do we have a responsibility?
No, I don't think we have a responsibility. But my main sort of point is against Reb. What he was saying, I've noticed every time he comes on the radio, he always puts an Islamic perspective on things. And, my question to Reb would be is, all these people, most of the people that are coming over are actually from Muslims, from failed, countries, Islamic countries that are failed states. And they come over to Britain, and they come over to Britain and they say, we want to turn Britain into, Sharia law. We want to bring Sharia law to Britain and make it become a Muslim country. My question is...
How many... Sorry, I mean, firstly, you've not interviewed them, so you don't know that they're saying that. Maybe they're just coming here because they want a better life, because they're fleeing from places which are war-torn and ravaged. And as a human being, do we not have a responsibility to fellow human beings, Jay, to look after them?
Well, no, because these are it's up to these Islamic countries like Libya, which is most of where they came from. These are failed Islamic states.
Which we helped destabilise by removing Colonel Gaddafi.
We helped. I don't think that Britain, with the West, has done such a big thing that it's destroyed the entire Middle East.
No, we didn't say that. You mentioned Libya, so then I mentioned Libya. Now, Libya was bombed by coalition aircraft, American and British amongst them, and that helped Colonel Gaddafi, who was a horrible man, there's no doubt about it, but he did keep a semblance of stability in the country, didn't he? All right, I mean, look, there was a civil war happening anyway, but to argue that we had nothing to do with it doesn't make sense, does it?
I just think that we, as Britain, these Islamic countries, they are mostly failed states, and they're coming over from these failed states. And the irony is that these people are coming over, and they want to, they've come from these countries that are absolutely, completely destroyed, like the Middle East, and they want to come over. And these are countries where they've got Sharia law. These people are saying this is our perfect land, our perfect...
well, it's clearly not. I mean, look, it's clearly not, is it? I mean, this is also countries that have endured years and years of corrupt dictatorships, and they're coming out of that, and the chaos that comes out of that. We have a responsibility, do we, to help them deal with that chaos? After all, if you look at the countries in the world which have the most refugees per person, it's countries like Pakistan. Pakistan has many more refugees.
Yeah, but I think...
It has one refugee for every 70 people.
I think we have got some responsibility, and that responsibility is...
Jordan. A third of Jordan's population is refugees.
Refugees, but... Yeah, but that's from other Islamic countries.
Yeah, but the point being is that we're not taking on, the fair share. I think I'm not quite sure, we're 16th in the world.
Yeah, but that's because we're a small country. Germany, France, they're a lot bigger countries, so they can accommodate people. But Britain is a smaller country.
But Lebanon, 10% of its population are refugees. That's a much smaller country. The entire population of Lebanon is under 5 million people, and yet 1 in 10 of them are refugees.
Yeah, but when these migrants go to Jordan and they go to Lebanon, they're not going to get benefits, they're not going to get money, they're not going to get free house. They just go there and they just find a tent and they live there. But if they come here, the government has to provide them with so much...
So you have no sympathy?
Well, I think we've got a responsibility, and I think the responsibility is these people can apply to become, to come to the UK, but these people are coming here illegally. That's against the law, So, I mean, in these countries like Libya, they can actually apply to become to Britain as an immigrant. And they can do it in the legal
they can't.
way.
I mean, they don't have the state structures to be able to do that. Jay, stay with us. Raj is in Pontefract. Raj, good morning.
Good morning, Nihal.
Listening to Jay speak, what do you think?
I'll just start with, like, when we say, do UK have a moral responsibility? I think yes, they do. When they are putting their nose in somebody's business, means somebody's country, and they're not spending millions, they're spending billions of like bombs and bombing somebody, and it'll just take them half the amount of that if they want to help somebody out there, whether it's Libya, Iraq. Means, name me a single country UK has gone into and come back and saying, okay, they're happy now. It's not the case. Wherever they're going, they're making it more negative. I know Gaddafi, Saddam, they were already negative, but two negatives won't make a positive.
Raj, are you here legally or illegally?
I'm illegal.
And how long have you been here?
14 years.
So, Raj, tell me about the journey that you made over here then. Was it an easy journey?
It was like comfortable. I came here as a student, started like doing odd jobs, and like got married, Indian only, brought my wife over. I've got my kids here now. They go to school, I work. It's just like, I won't say like I've struggled. It's been easy for me.
So why do you think so many British Asians who we're hearing from today, they feel that we don't have a responsibility, that this country is full up, and we shouldn't let these people come in?
I don't know what history they've been reading, but as far as I know, there are like 198 nations, and I think 90% of nations, UK people, like UK, whether it called it East Indian Company or like British Army, they have gone to each and every country and they've been like benefited. It's not like they're coming out empty pocket. They're filling up their pocket. I mean, don't want to go in history, but there was.
Are you from India?
I'm from India.
Right. So why don't you go back to India?
It's a matter of where I feel myself comfortable. I might be selfish, but the thing is, it's a matter of wherever you feel you're comfortable. Like British, 50 years back, they thought they'll be comfortable in subcontinent. They were staying there. As soon as they thought, we are uncomfortable now, we want to go back. So
but India, but India is a country which has a space program. It has billionaires. It has technical.
You're talking about 5% of population, Nihal. I'm sorry, there are like plenty of other things which are happening in India. It's not like easy. Like I know, like sitting here, we see like space things happening. Narendra Modi doing good job. But if you go down to a ground level, there are like drug problem in Punjab. There are like plenty of problems all over. Like you call it East India. There are plenty of things happening. But it looks very easy when we sit here and talk about India.
But you're here illegally.
Yeah.
So at the moment, there's a lot of politicians talking about illegal immigration to this country. You're not an asylum seeker. You're not here because you were running away from a civil war or being tortured as a minority. You're here purely for financial reasons, aren't you?
For financial reason, that's it. I will not deny it. I won't make up any story. Only reason I'm on air today is just talk about when people are talking, they don't have a moral, UK don't have a moral responsibility. Yes, they do. When they're putting their nose into somebody's business, they should be helping them as well. If you don't want to help somebody, don't put your nose into somebody's business then. If you're that much concerned about your country, defense, you spend that billions of pounds you're spending on Afghanistan, Iraq, make a big, like, good security check on your country so that nobody can come in, and if somebody is going in and out, they should know, which they have just started recently, like doing exit checks.
All right, Raj, stay there a second. Vijay is on the line from Birmingham. Vijay, good morning.
Good morning, Nihal.
Vijay, what do you think of Raj, who is here, and he said he's an illegal immigrant here. He has said that if we go sticking our nose into other countries' business, then we have a responsibility to deal with the aftermath of that.
No, I don't agree with him, and I'll tell you why. I mean, you take these people from Libya over the weekend. I mean, you look at Africa as a whole, as a continent. It's a lot larger than Europe. If these people's lives were in danger, they could have gone to the neighbouring countries in Africa. They could have gone to other fellow Muslim countries, even to the Middle East. I mean, why make the trek all the way to Europe?
Well, you're not going to go to Syria. You're not going to go to Egypt, are you?
No, but there are other countries in Africa. I mean, closer to them, they could have gone to Uganda, they could have gone to Nigeria, they could have gone to Kenya, they could have gone to all these other places. They come to Europe, pure and simple, because they want a better economic life. That's the truth of it. All these stories people make about, our lives are dangerous, it's just a farce. I mean, even if you go back, and this is why I would not be voting Labour this election, because it's because of them that the whole face of this country changed from 1997 to 2010. I mean, even when America was bombing Afghanistan, less Afghanis came, about 100,000 Afghanis came across, but people were buying original Afghani passports in Peshawar for £5, and 900,000 Pakistanis came over pretending to be Afghani over those 10 years. I mean, people always abuse the immigration system. We don't owe these people. Yes, what we can do, what Britain can do, and the other European countries can do, is give money, help the governments of those countries try and stabilise and move these people to nearer places. It does not make geographical sense. If Britain was in trouble tomorrow and everyone started going to America, I would think, why were they going to America? Why not go to France? Why not go to Germany? Why not go to countries that are in close proximity to you? It's an economic thing. It's not. I think 1 in 1,000 people's lives are truly in danger because I don't know whether you follow immigration, but if you go to the Home Office website, you will see that a lot of these stories that people make are all the same, Nihal. I mean, look at all these Somali stories; they're all the same.
But Vijay, you cannot ignore the carnage that is taking place in Libya and in Syria.
Okay.
How insecure the system is in Egypt.
Okay, I'll answer that. Now, first of all, in the Middle East, you have a Middle Eastern Union, of Arabic states. Why can't all those Muslim countries get together and help their fellow Muslims? I mean, it's the irony of the thing. It's so stupid. You've got Muslims fleeing Muslim Sharia countries to go and live in non-Muslim countries like the UK or Germany, and then wanting those exact countries that gave them shelter.
So why are so many of you making this a religious issue?
Because it is. That's what it's become. I mean, look at the terrorism.
No, it hasn't.
Can I explain it to you without you interrupting me, please?
No, but both you and Jay have made it about Sharia law. It's not relevant.
I'll tell you what's relevant. Can you answer this question? So I'm going to ask you this question. Why is it, Nihal, and I'd like you to answer this, you've got these Muslims fleeing Muslim countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Syria, whatever, coming over to the UK, which is a non-Muslim country, and then once they get shelter from here, they want to change the face of this very country.
Just to be very clear, Pakistan takes in more refugees than pretty much any other country on earth. 80% of refugees in this country, 80% of refugees in the world go to developing countries. They don't go to Western countries. So this idea that somehow there's this Muslim influx is not true.
No, you're wrong. Because first of all, Nihal,
I'm not wrong. 80%
answering my question.
80% of the world's refugees are in developing countries, with Pakistan leading the way.
One moment. I'll answer why that is as well to you then. Because you didn't answer my question, but I'll answer your question. The reason that is...
Because it was a rhetorical question, really.
No, it wasn't. Listen, Pakistan does not have a border with Afghanistan. The people of Peshawar recognize themselves as Pathans. They don't even see them as Pakistani or Afghanistan.
So was it? Wait a minute.
1 minute. Can I finish my point, please?
So the Russians invaded Afghanistan. Then, of course, the Americans and the British bombed Afghanistan. So they weren't Muslim countries that went into Afghanistan, were they?
Nihal, you asked me a question about 80% of refugees going into Pakistan. I was trying to answer it. You didn't let me. Let me answer you that question, how Pakistan plays with statistics. What's happened is Afghanistan and Pakistan doesn't have a border. So what you have is loads of Afghanistanis pouring into Peshawar.
Yeah, but you can't even be bothered to understand why they're doing it, can you? Okay, why are they doing it then? Why are lots of Afghanis flying into or flooding into Pakistan? Why?
Okay, number one, they're not flying into Pakistan.
Sorry, flooding in. Why? Why?
They're not flooding in, number two. The reason
they clearly are.
No, they're not. Hang on a minute. Why? You've got somebody standing at the border taking notes.
No, but I've got the numbers, which is something you haven't managed to get.
What's your source? 1 minute. What's your source for that? That's a load of nonsense. And I'll tell you why. You've got lots of Afghani just going into Peshawar because that's where they see their farm. They're Pathans.
And you know that.
You understand it.
And you know that.
Yes, I do, because if you look at that, if you read about it.
All right, well, Vijay, look, we've gone way off topic here with your usual anti-Muslim stance that you have. Let's bring it back away from your Islamophobia for a second, Vijay, and just tell us, why is it that you think as human beings we don't have a responsibility to help people who are fleeing from terrible situations? Why as human beings we don't? And leave your Islamophobia to the side for a second and just tell us, why you think it is, as a human being, we don't have a responsibility to help out another human being in need.
I never said we don't have a responsibility, but you have a limited responsibility. And by the way, I take offence to what you said about Islamophobia. Just because I've got a point does not mean it's Islamophobia. But anyway, back to what I'm saying.
Well,
now,
you seem to be obsessed with...
No, I'm not. Nihal, you're just making that up as you go along. Just
No. Listen back to the iPlayer, my friend.
Yeah, let's just stick to what we're talking about. Now, the reason we do have a responsibility, but we don't have a responsibility to encourage people to leave their countries thousands and thousands of miles away and come to Europe when they can be adequately looked after in their own continent by their own people. I think financially...
Do you not think if they could be adequately looked after in their own country that they would go through the turmoil and the terror of making that journey? Do you think if they could adequately be looked after that they would...
By neighbouring countries... But they could go to their neighbouring countries and seek asylum.
Well, as I pointed out, 80% of the world's refugees are in developing countries. Vijay, thank you as ever. Hussein is on the line from Birmingham. Actually, before Hussein, let me go to Senna. Senna, hello.
Hi, good morning, Nell. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. Now, tell me, do we have a responsibility, Senna?
No, we don't.
Why?
Not at all. I think as a human being, if someone is next to me and they're ill, they fall over, you help them up. Absolutely. But we have enough problems in our own country. Homeless, starving, pensioners, kids, homeless, all that. And all the funding we send overseas to help these countries. It's ludicrous. And I think the government is right. This whole immigration issue is just out of control. And of all the money that you and I and all your colleagues and my colleagues pay into the tax system that we are paid into, it's been swallowed up by people on benefits. A percentage of them are coming from the Eastern Bloc.
How?
We also have.
How many? I mean, this is a very popular line. But why don't you tell me, of the benefits budget, how much of it goes to migrants? Because actually, just to give you some clear statistics, EU migrants to this country make a net contribution to this country. That means they give far more in taxation than they take out in benefits.
I've seen that in the press now, and I think it's still someone draws.
No, these are independent studies that have said this isn't the press. There's not very many places in the press where you'll find people bigging up migrants. Trust me.
No. I've read that, and I think there is a whole controversy about this. That independent.
There's no controversy over that.
But back to the question saying about moral responsibility. It's not our issue. These people who've taken this very difficult journey, they took a risk. Are we the sole country to keep going and helping out and coming back? Our funds will run out. The guy who was on before me, yes, he had a very valid point. At the end of the day, we can't keep supporting every country. Our country's in a mess already. And, the government...
But what if the argument... But what about the argument, Senator, and other people have said already, that if we helped create that mess, like somewhere in Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya, then do we then not have a responsibility?
I think we go in as the first phase, let's just get your country under control and get the terrorism or whatever under control. Then it's up to you to put your house in order. You have tax systems. We just go and help. And how much money have we spent? And you obviously have the statistics of helping other countries in the last 10 years. How many billions have we spent in army, Royal Navy, all that, going in to try and help and stabilise that country? If we fell into trouble tomorrow now, who's going to come and help us?
Well, there you go. That's a very interesting question to end in. Let's hope there'd be some people sympathetic to our needs if we were ended up in that problem.
The sound of Asian Britain on digital TV, online and on your mobile.
In the first hour, I was talking about whether Britain had a responsibility to take more migrants from Africa. And I wanted to know your response. Avi on the email said, bit discouraged by a lot of the comments on this morning's show. Must say I disagree with everyone saying the country's full. I used to work for a charity that worked with asylum seekers, refugees, and from my experience, they are running from the worst kind of violence, upheaval or danger, palpable danger for their lives. All they want is to come here and work and build better lives for themselves and their families. While they're waiting for their statuses to be approved, they are forbidden by the Home Office to work. Most people come from cultures where work is a matter of dignity and they become frustrated by this. And let's dispel the misconception that as soon as they land, they get a wealth of benefits, a house and so on. Ask them what it's like to live 2 or 3 years in a detention centre after undertaking an arduous and perilous journey to get here, leaving everything behind. That's what Avi says. Sukhvinder Singh Bunga, Sukhi, has said, I don't believe we have a duty to look after these fleeing people from war-torn African countries. We have enough problems of our own, as our own are struggling to meet day-to-day needs. Very few of these people are running from life-threatening issues, and most are economic migrants. If their lives were really threatened, then they should settle in the first safe country they get into, and you won't find thousands sitting at Calais. The fact that thousands are sitting there and trying to get to England shows these are clear economic migrants. As for your argument saying that 80% of these people end up in developing countries, and that is only because of our tight borders, else these 80% would be waiting to get in too. I worked hard, or perhaps, just perhaps, they don't want to leave the country that they grew up in. So they'll go to the next available country, hoping that at some point, when the situation gets better, they'll go back. Maybe. I worked hard and paid all my taxes for the last 28 years. The social made my life misery after I lost my job for 1 month. I was continuously hounded by social telling me to find a job, like a stuck record. How is that fair? Ali has said, hi Nihal, we should help these genuine people. We have an obligation. Some of us British people are selfish and ignorant, got no heart. OK, let's speak to Shanawaz, who got in contact with us from Nottingham. After that, Tariq in Leicester. Shanawaz, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, how are you doing?
Good, mate. Do we have a responsibility?
I think we do. We do have a responsibility, but I think we have a responsibility that we should be helping the people in need in their own countries. I mean, yes, we did go into numerous of countries, not just in the Arab states, but we've gone to so many countries that we specifically destroyed for our own resources, and we have an obligation to give some back to help build their lives in their own countries. I don't think we have an obligation to open our borders and say, yes, you know, we allow you to come in our country. We're lacking resources ourselves. We are struggling to support people in our own countries at the moment, and open borders to other people and supporting them. Because at the moment, that's exactly what we're doing. We're allowing people to come in. We're forgetting, you know, the people who help build this country. We're forgetting the people who pay the taxes to help, you know, build a life here. They've been completely forgotten, and instead we're welcoming other people, and then we're having crises here over our own. And I think people like, you know, Vijay, you know, who have, you know, extremist views. I mean, seriously, Nick, step back and take his personal views out of this and his racist views, and actually look at it. Nobody's coming here to build a Sharia law. There are people who are in need, and we should be helping these people because we're the ones who destroy their countries and put them in a scenario they're in today. But at the same time, we need to take a look at ourselves first. We can only better other people once we better ourselves. Now, if we can't support our own people and their lifestyle, the way they're living, how are we going to support anybody else?
So then are you against the foreign aid budget then?
Well, I'm not against the foreign aid budget. I think every human being should be supported. The ones who are suffering, despite what country they come from, we should support them. But at the same time, you can only support them within reason, within limits. But if you don't have a foundation to stand on yourself, how are you going to support somebody else? Now, we should be, as I keep saying, we need to better ourselves and support the people of this country before we support the people. Now, if we've gone into Afghanistan, we've gone to Iraq, Syria, Bosnia, we've bombed those countries, we've destroyed those countries for our own resources. Despite whatever the political reasons were, we've caused those problems. So it's our obligation to give something back to those people and build their lives.
Okay. Right, I just heard the Defence Secretary the Foreign Secretary, Philip Hammond, talking about the need to deal with the criminals who are people trafficking. But that's further down the line. Surely what you're saying is we should be sorting out the problems in Syria, in Libya, so these people don't feel like they want to leave. But that's a hugely difficult job that may take years. In the meantime, Shanawaz, where do those people go? People like you and me, except we don't have bombs raining down on us. We don't have Islamic State rolling into our area.
No, that's perfectly fine. But there's so many other countries. It appears that everyone seems to be flooded into the UK. The UK has become an open, you know, haven for a lot of people. But this is a free for all.
But it isn't. It isn't.
It isn't. I totally agree. It isn't. But I personally have seen people that have come into this country and they've been. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. In my past careers, I've seen people come in claiming benefits, for example, for kids. 9 years, 10 years, basically claiming 9-10 years worth of benefits for kids that have been living in European countries purely because this country allows them. So I mean,
they've closed that. They've closed all that, haven't they?
They've closed that, but it's a prime example. But you know, things like this, and these words have been getting out. People are coming in. Now, there's so many other countries they can go to get support and get, things that they need to build their lives, but they don't go there. They purely come to this country and only literally this country only. Yeah, they do go to other Europe countries, but this country is renowned for taking people under their wings and supporting them. And like I said, and if we are taking people in, then by all means, yes, okay, fine, we allow people to come into this country, we support and build their lives. But once we've helped develop their country, and then we should then send them back. We should turn and say, okay, we've helped you where we can. Your country is now where it should be. It's time that you left. We should be taking people in and making a record of who's come in, who needs to go at what date, and so on. So we can then finally live our lives and live what we've put into this country. We can get that back. And remember, that doesn't seem to be the case.
Shanawaz, thank you very much. Good to speak to you. Tarek, lastly, is in Leicester. Tarek, hello, mate.
Hello, Nihal.
How are you?
Very well, thanks. I've been listening to your show for many years, so I thought I'd give a call in.
Great.
I took exception to some of the things said today. So.
Right, I'm glad that you did, because, of course, I think someone called in from Leicester earlier on. So, Tarek, tell me what your thoughts on this are. Do we have a responsibility to take more?
Well, I think everything needs to be put in context. There's people here who are struggling, but if you look at the struggle of the people outside the UK who are obviously drowning, the struggle, there's no comparison. So people are, okay, you may not have enough food on the table, etc., etc. However, if you put these people, for example, drowned, their problems are so severe that they've gone out on ship and they've just died giving their lives. So there've got to be, some serious issues there. So when people say, oh, no, it's not a responsibility, it is actually everyone's responsibility, UK inclusive. In terms of what Vijay was saying before, I agree with a lot of people, what they say. But I think, economic migrants, what's wrong with being an economic migrant? Vijay's probably forefathers or whoever came here were 99% economic migrants as well. So why is an issue if someone else benefits from being an economic migrant?
But isn't there a difference that a lot of our relations, our ancestors, were invited to come here because they helped in the 1960s and the 1970s rebuild this country?
No, that point's agreed. There's no debate about that. There was a need then.
So there isn't that need. Yeah. Well, actually, saying that, some businesses argue that there is that need, that a lot of the jobs we don't want to do ends up being done by migrants to this country.
Yeah, no, completely agree. But like I said, there's no one right answer. There's so many right answers. But I think at the moment of need, you should help. Your neighbour, anyone who's in need, you should help if you can.
Have you noticed? Sorry, Tarek, have you noticed Leicester change?
Leicester, there's a lot of obviously different communities here, and Leicester's changed a lot. I've been here since birth, so over the last 30 years, Leicester's changed a lot. The last 15 years have been, the white population have probably decreased. Well, that's what it seems anyway when you go out on the street. But it would really depend on where in Leicester you're going. Maybe the inner city areas where most of the Asian community or, economic migrants, etc., come. But if you go towards the outskirts of Leicester or Leicestershire, you won't actually see that much Asians as you do in the inner city areas. So There's obviously that balance there.
Because I think it was a couple of years ago, actually, that Leicester became a city where white Britons were in the minority.
Yeah. No, that's agreed. There's no debate on that. When people say the country is small, yeah, it's small. But if you look at the facts, between 2 and 4% of the land on the UK has been built on, so there's still 90-odd% free. So when people say there's no space, there is space. That's ridiculous saying there's no space. There's loads of space, but it's just that the expansion programs and the network and the infrastructure, etc., is not there, which that needs to be built upon, obviously. But there's space everywhere. I don't believe that at all. There's no space.
Tarek, thank you very much, mate. Good to speak to you. First time caller. Okay. Love that. Thanks, Tarek. So on the text and on the email, Surinder said people came from East Africa, were British, and the situation was better in those days. Yes, but Surinder, there was a great deal of racism faced, and lots of people were very worried about the influx of Asians coming to this country in the early 70s. And of course, in 1968, Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech, which was talking about this kind of Commonwealth immigration to this country. It is sad to see them in a bad situation, but we can't keep taking people in. We've no responsibility to help them. The question is, how many can you help? If we can help, we should do it in their country, but keep having everyone into the UK. The West, such as the British, have fostered great humanitarian values. There are vicious extremists who have no such values or scruples. They are using innocent people as a weapon against us, knowing that our mercy is our Achilles heel. They wish to swamp or flood our populations with their cultural persuasion, demography, geography. Our defence must come before giving help. Africa must be taught our values of humanity for them to help their people. No, send them back or don't let them in the first place. I care about all humans of the planet, but UK is a small country. Take only a minority of those migrants that are escaping death. Afshan in Bury said, so sad to hear about the death of so many migrants. UK and America's hands are filthy with the blood of all those people fleeing unnecessary wars caused by their greed and power. Yes, we should be doing more to help migrants. They are escaping in many cases death, starvation, and goodness knows what else. And lastly, Alexander has said, yes, Britain has a duty to help the faraway migrants who are weighing in and then taking the risks to reach Europe for a better life. Simultaneously, Britain has the duty to help the Iraqis escaping the extremists, the North Koreans escaping to South Korea or China, the Rohingya escaping the Burmese massacres, the Mexicans walking through the desert to cross into the US, the Indonesians making the same journey towards Australia. Let us help them all. After all, same principle, different areas. Yesterday, I watched a BBC report on one Nigerian migrant bore all the traits of Boko Haram IS. Time will tell. Okay, 23 minutes past 12. Coming up, I'm going to be speaking to the dancer and fashion designer Saran Kohli about his upcoming performance at International Hip Hop Festival Breaking Convention. But fine, for now, let's take a break for some music.